And here we go. Okay, so I'm your Coasterhead. I'm gonna do this on the Coasterhead podcast because it's kind of theme park related. It's not about roller coasters, but Universal. Forgive me if I sound a bit rough. I'm only just tested negative for COVID today. But yeah, I've had it for quite a while actually. I had this one since maybe Tuesday or Wednesday the week prior, so I had it for a good amount of time, a good week and a half. It was not fun. That said, that means some of my days at today's video topic event, I had COVID for, which is unknown for me. But here we go. I'm gonna get into my little intro here I got on the phone, and we'll have a little talk. Okay, so today's theme, topic, point of interest: Halloween Horror Nights 32. My second Halloween Horror Nights experience. It was intense, to say the least. We opted for 5 nights instead of 1 this year, and I got to experience each house 3 times, including one particular night, the Thursday 7th, where I experienced all the houses once and 3 of them for a second time on that same night. So I feel I'm more able to discuss the houses and make a ranking this year, as I barely made it for last year's 10 house 1 night extravaganza alive. So this year we have 5 strong IPs and some equally strong original houses. Plus we had this overarching central theme focused on one Dr. Oddfellow and his lore as the HHN icon. This was certainly a stronger year than last year. Not to say last year wasn't great, but you know, it had Halloween, it had monsters, it had Blumhouse, it had a surprisingly good house based on The Weeknd, the artist. But this year's IP was better. And I'd argue that with the exception of last year's just brilliant Dead Man's Pier, the original houses were also better this year. So we're gonna dig into these houses. I was gonna do just a ranking, but I decided I don't want to do that. I want to do a full discussion of all the houses and maybe the scare zones, and then at the end we're gonna get to the ranking, and I'm gonna just spit the ranking out real quick because like that way you'll keep watching till the end to get the ranking. Please don't skip forward. So let's start with what was listed on the Horror Nights map as A, and we'll work our way round to J or whatever it was. So A. I'm going to start with an original house. It's called Blood Moon Dark Offerings. Now, the idea of this house is that this was this year's Dead Man's Pier. It wasn't as good as Dead Man's Pier, but it was this year's one. It was the same guy who designed Dead Man's Pier from last year, which was just so incredible. And yeah, no, this one had good set pieces, I'll give it that. It wasn't as stunning as the giant shipwreck with the woman's ghost on the top playing the violin. It wasn't that amazing, but it was still good. So Blood Moon Dark Offering is colonial cult. Okay, so we're in a colonial village. It's perfectly great. There's a blood moon, and it turns out some of the residents of this village have taken to worshipping the blood moon. And that's all well and good, except that they then decide they want to sacrifice the non-worshippers to the blood moon. And so begins the violent and bloody search for body parts to sacrifice as an offering to the blood moon in exchange for good harvest, because people actually used to believe that kind of stuff. I think what makes it scary is how realistic this could actually be. It's not monsters jumping at you. It's not demons and ghoulies and mutated people. It's just cultists. Like, this is probably the most realistic house. Like, jeez. And I tell you what, they had some good scares in this house. So your first room, you enter the big sound stage, and you enter into you take a right turn into a little wooden building. And inside there are all these people in cloaks standing around like a shrine, and up at the top there's another one in a cloak, ordering them all to find the non-believers and kill them. And some of these cloaked people on the bottom floor here, you don't know if they're just like statues or whatever, or if they're real people. And so they all just stand there not moving, and they're all facing away from you with their cloaks and hoods up and everything, so you can't see any details of them. And then eventually you walk past and one of them's going to turn around and try and get you. You continue through this little village where they're tearing apart people and everything. And yes, they've got some quite clever little hiding spots. They made use of this trick where you'd be walking and there'd be like these like supports for the building on the left side, and between one of the supports and the wall was a mirror that made it look like the room continued the natural length. But behind the mirror, which you wouldn't have seen, there was a person waiting to jump out and get you, which was really clever because you never saw them coming, because you were just like, oh, it just continues, there's nothing there. Oh, it's a mirror! Look at that! Bloody brilliant! But yeah, so, you know. And then there's this one bit where you walk into it like a church, and there's the pews and everything, and there's just lines and lines and lines of these cloaked figures just standing, just sitting there, you know, just, and you don't know which ones are going to move there either. And when you get to the last room, there's like this giant offering of body parts, and all these cloaked people are lined all the way around the room, really close to you, and again, you still don't know which ones are real and which ones aren't, so some good jump scares. Like, if you'd asked me going into the event what I thought the scariest house was going to be, I would have said The Exorcist, obviously. It's The Exorcist. But this house, whew, this was something else. And I did have the experience of doing this one alone on one occasion. I'm glad I was alone for that. I got jumped so much, honestly. Like, this was an intense house. Ooh, okay, so that's Blood Moon Dark Offering out the way. The next house, B, is The Exorcist Believer. They totally put that there for B because Believer, like, they definitely planned that. But The Exorcist Believer, it's the new Exorcist movie by Universal and Blumhouse, and it comes out in October. Do you see the problem here? This movie doesn't come out yet, and we've got a house based on it. So what we've got is a living trailer. And some information I heard from the Discover Universal podcast is that they made this house alongside them making the film. So to begin with, when they were making the house, they just had the script, and they were working off of what they can do with the script. And then the film would progress, and the house team would say, hey, just send us some snapshots, you know? And then they would take these snapshots and say, okay, well, we'll put this in the house, put this in the house. And what they've essentially created is a living trailer for you to walk through of this new movie. And it's scary. Yeah. Who would have thunk it? But, you know, it's The Exorcist, you know? The story is that, for some reason you're in Haiti, whatever, and, you come across this little doll with 3 eyes. Ooh, bad news, it's the devil doll! Next thing you know, 2 girls have gone lost in the woods, you find them, and they're not quite themselves, are they? Cue another devil jump scare. And then these 2 girls, they do the exorcism stuff. Like, they just act like creepy little girls in horror. It's what you get. And then soon enough, the exorcist comes in and tries to exorcise them, and next thing you know, you're in hell. And you're facing off against the 3-eyed demon again. And, it's pretty intense, not gonna lie. It's, I think it's one of those things that, because you don't know the IP story, because it's based on a movie that isn't out yet, it surprises you more because you don't know where it's going to go. But also, it's harder to follow the story because it's almost as if you should know it, but you don't. Like, I had to read about it. I had to read about the house to really grasp it all. About like the bit with the doll and the in the Haiti and all that. But I think it's served well as a living trailer because I kind of want to watch the movie now, even though it's not the kind of movie I would watch, but I kind of want to now. So I think it's done its job. It's, as I said, I do think that the story's a bit harder to follow, because obviously we don't know it and it's not told to us. I think it makes the assumption a bit that you've seen the first trailer at least, which, to be fair, I had. I think it would have been more lost if I hadn't seen it. But, yeah, so that's The Exorcist Believer. It was another house that I had the experience of doing by myself, and it was also very, very intense that time. But I find that when you do the houses more and more, you notice more things. First time through, I missed all the demons. Like all the particular 3-eyed demons. Second time through, I saw them all. Third time through, I was like, oh, that's the 2 ghosts in the forest hiding in the corner. Totally didn't. Are they real? You never know with them if they're real or if they're animatronics or just props or something. And these ones were just props. They weren't animatronics. They weren't real either. So it was pretty scary. Anyways, we're going on to House C, and this was a very good house. This was very good. It was Stranger Things 4. Now, I love Stranger Things, and Season 4 is the best season. It was so good. It was definitely more horror in this season. Like, the others were, like, more suspense, a little scary, a little but, like, it wasn't true horror. Whereas Season 4 comes in with this character who can destroy you from within your mind, breaks all your bones and pops your eyes out and everything. That's horror. So yeah, obviously I'm talking about Vecna here. Vecna, he's got the big left hand. He's gonna go into your mind. But yeah, so this was a really cool house. I really love this one. So you go into the first room and you're outside Eddie's trailer, and you go in, and Eddie's in there like, Chrissy, wake up! And then Chrissy's just rising to the sky, and her arms are breaking. And then you go out into the back, and Max is there, and then Vecna's trying to get her, and the next thing you know, you're in Vecna's, next thing you know, you're in the lab, where, Eleven's doing the test that makes her go back to her thoughts and memories from when she was in the, what kind of institute with Dr. Brenner, and, it has the battle between 11 and 1, which is really cool. The first time I went through it, I swear, the guy playing 1 looked exactly like the actor, and every time the person playing 11 looked really similar. And like, it was just so good, because with Hollywood you didn't get this bit. In the Orlando one, you got to walk down this corridor, and on one side you had 11 reaching out and trying to like put 1 away and banish him to the Upside Down, whereas on the other side you then had 1 who jumped out of a wall with all this smoke and everything. So cool, honestly. Then, yeah, next thing you know, you walk through and you're in Vecna's mind lair. And Vecna's trying to get you. It's all blood red and everything. Kate Bush starts playing. And then you enter the Creel house back in the Upside Up and everything. Which is pretty cool and everything. You get to go in the attic. You get to see Vecna in there. You get to you get to see the scene with Eddie and Dustin fighting the Demobats. That was pretty cool. And like about the 3rd time round, I'm just in there, I'm just vibing, like, yeah. The 2 guys playing Eddie and Dustin were vibing. We were all just chilling to Metallica at this point. And then you went through to the next room, and oh no, they had to show them killing Eddie. It was so sad. But then yeah, you kept going. You saw Robin throwing the flaming bottle at Vecna. You went back into the mine lair and had 11 and Vecna's final face-off. And then it was over, and you exited out the doors, and then I forgot the cardinal rule of Stranger Things houses. There's an obligatory Demogorgon jump scare at the end. So I walked out this house thinking it was over. This was the first house I did. I walked out, and from my left, freaking 7-foot-tall plant-faced monster just jumps out at me, and I'm scurrying across the right. I've never been so scared in my life. It was so funny. Honestly, like that was the best jump scare of the entire season. Like that was good. That was I was not ready for that. Second time I went through, I wasn't falling for it though. I waited till there was like loads of empty space for it, and then I dashed out the door before he could get to me, turned around, and the woman behind our group got and it was so funny. Honestly, the guy playing that Demogorgon was well, he just broke character. Like you could tell he was laughing his head off. It was so funny. But yeah, no, Stranger Things was amazing. I will say that helps if you've seen the show and you know the story. I think that you kind of have to have that. You have to be able to take yourself out of the fact that you're a fan of the IP, and you have to be able to judge the house and how well it tells the story without knowing it, and like, just how it is. And honestly, I think it was good. It did a good job making it obvious that 1 and Vecna were the same, because after the bit where Levin banished 1, it showed 1 like semi-Vecna'd, and who jumped out at you. So like, it did a good job of telling that. It told most of the key points really, and it showed all 4 of Vecna's kills, the bodies and everything, and them dying. So like, it did tell the story well, even if you haven't seen it. I mean, sure, it left a lot out. It's like a 3-minute walk through a house. It's gonna leave stuff out, but it did really good, honestly. Next one is D. Yep, now this was intentional. D for Dueling Dragons. Dueling Dragons, Choose Thy Fate. That name might sound familiar. So from 1999 until about 2017, a ride existed in Islands of Adventure called Dueling Dragons, which was then renamed in like 2010 to Dragon Challenge for the Harry Potter stuff. And it was a dueling. I want to say it was B&M inverted coasters. It was definitely inverted. It was a Pyrock and Blizzrock, the red and blue fire and ice dragons, and they used to duel each other. They had all these interlocking elements and everything. It's really cool. I only got to go on each twice in 2017, literally just before it closed, because I finally got tall enough for it. But honestly, it's such a good ride. It's still in my top 10 roller coaster list. Like, it might get bumped down. I am going to Thorpe Park next week, so it might make it to top 20 instead. But for the moment, at time of recording, Dueling Dragons is a top 10 roller coaster for me, even though it's gone. It was so good. But yeah, so what they did is they said, oh, let's take the story from the old queue when it was Dueling Dragons and not the Harry Potter version Dragon Challenge, and let's make it a house. So I was really excited for this one. And the idea was you go in and you walk through this like really long narrow corridor with curtains, and there's like these little pictures overhead. And Merlin, that's Merlin with a Y, not an I, copyrights, explains the story to you of how Milady of the Lake turned him into the Enchanted Oak, in which which left his castle undefended. So the warlocks, Pyrock and Blizzrock of Fire and Ice, have amassed their armies to come and get Merlin's spellbook for their nefarious purposes or whatever. And the idea is you have to go through this house. You've got to help Merlin protect the book from the warlocks who also get turned into dragons, which is pretty cool. So you're going through, and I will say this is not a scary house per se. Like, the scariest thing were the trolls. Like, the trolls were scary. I swear, like, they put the Tooth Fairy in there from Revenge of the Tooth Fairy. I swear I saw her at one point in there. But yeah, the trolls were scary, but like, the Fire and Ice characters were not, because they're so colourful and bright. It's not scary. But like, I liked it more for the fact that it wasn't scary, because it was this really cool adventure house you walked through, and you got to watch this battle unfold, and the way the fire blast was hit and the ice blast would hit the walls, and they would all lunge each other. There's this good bit we go for a narrow bit, and the fire comes out from your left, and the ice guy comes out from the right, and they're trying to fight each other. It's so cool. And then like, you get near the end, and like there's like, the set pieces are amazing, by the way. The whole castle set pieces, the Enchanted Oak, where you kind of enter Merlin's mouth for some reason. And like, they got this giant castle bit near the end with a massive red and blue dragon each side on the top, breathing smoke at each other. It's so cool. But then you go through that gate, and on the wall it says, like in the right, choose thy fate. And you have to choose to go left for fire or right for ice, the same way as with the rides. You pick a route, one more fire or ice ghoulie gets you, and then the final room. Did you get the good ending or the bad ending? Because there are 4 endings in this thing. If you go, let's say you go fire. You could have the bad ending where the fire warlock is holding Merlin's head, or the good ending where Merlin comes out and congratulates you. And then consequently the same on the ice side. The ice warlock holds the head of Merlin, or Merlin congratulates you. I went for the first time, and I got the ice bad ending, but I missed it. I didn't actually get to see the ending on that one, but my mum saw the ice wizard holding Merlin's head, which I missed. The second time I went fire ending, and I thought, oh, we'll try fire, and bad ending again. And I actually did get to see Merlin's head being held by the fire guy. And the third time, I was going through by myself, and I thought, it was really nice that time I went through, because it was really quiet, there was loads of space behind me, a good amount of space in front of me, there was like a group in front of me, and that was it. And their group split off, and 2 of them went fire, and 1 of them went ice, and I thought, oh, which way do I go? I'll go with the 1 and even it out. I went with the ice, and me and this woman who went in the ice one, we kind of just stood in the last room for like a little bit, and we watched for the result, and Merlin came out, and we were both just so excited that we finally got Merlin, and we got the good ending. It was just really happy. So I just stood there and listened to Merlin give off his entire speech, because I guess all the people behind me went fire or something. And I just stood there, and Merlin was doing this whole bit about how well we'd done, and that we had saved him from wizards and everything. It was so cool, honestly. It was like you completed a quest. Well done. It was really nice. I really loved this house. Like, yeah, it's a nostalgia for one of my favourite roller coasters. My favourite one that no longer exists, definitely. And it was just, I loved the storytelling was lovely, the sets were nice. I liked that it wasn't too scary, especially when you're on a night like the one where I did 13 houses in a night. It's nice to have a house that's a little less scary. So, I mean, I did that one right before going into Exorcist and Blood Moon. But, yeah, so Dueling Dragons was great. I loved it. I've got it on my shirt. I got the Choose Thy Fate there. I got all the original houses on this shirt, and I've got a jumper that I'm not getting to my birthday, but I've got a jumper with the IP houses on the back, which is pretty cool. But yeah, so now we're going to go on to E for Yeti Campground Kills. I also found out from the Discover Universal podcast that Yeti is kind of an inside joke. They did one that was basically swamp apes, and they called them Yetis. And then they did one that was basically Sasquatch, and they called them Yetis. And this is basically Bigfoot attacks a camp, but they decided, yeah, we'll call them Yetis again. So it's just the Yetis, and they threw in all the different types of Yetis, like from the previous ones and this one. They had a family of Yetis and everything, like. So this one was really like, in terms of story, we have no story. No, we do. It's really basic though. You go to a campground, there's a family at a campground, and the Yetis have come to kill. It's that simple. Like, you don't even get into, like, the first main room. As soon as you're inside the soundstage, you walk in front of the cabin, the Yeti jumps out at you already. This was definitely one of the more intense ones. There were a lot of scares. This was one of the scariest houses, like top 3, I'd say. I'd say it was Blood Moon, Exorcist, Yeti. And this one, it didn't, like, all it was basically jump scares, but that worked. So you were going through all these cabins and everything, and out in this forest between the lodge and everything. There were just Yetis and Yetis and Yetis and Yetis. And the Halloween Horror Nights bear was back, which completely scared me the first time because it was lurking in the dark underneath the staircase, and then it came forward and I was like, oh, what is that? I thought it was a weasel at first, like a really tall weasel, like in Willy's Wonderland, but it was a bear. And then the second 2 times, which were both on the same night, the Thursday I did the 13 houses, I saw him and I was like, okay, why is he not moving? And they just put a statue in, and then he just goes, rah, rah. Oh, it was funny. Apparently he almost hit my mom on one of them, just swipe him with the claw. But no, so the bear was there. There was this one really funny bit which I didn't notice until like the last time we went through. Tiny baby Yeti on the floor, dead. And this little kid standing over it saying, I killed it, I killed it! And then the big Yeti comes out behind it from the same, like, hiding spot and starts attacking this little kid actor. It's so funny. So this was, I get why they said this was the comedy house this year. I mean, even to the point where they had a snake jumping out of a toilet. That, like, it was a fun house, but, it was definitely more intense, and yeah, I didn't tell like the great story or whatever from the narrative point, but it was fun. It was fun times. We're getting on to F now, and I believe this was Chucky. Chucky. Okay, so we did the house for F. I guess I called it, this one was F. It was in the Fast and Furious queue room. Terrible ride, by the way. But, yeah, so Chucky. We did this house, Chucky Ultimate Kill Count, and the premise is a bit, you wouldn't get it from, unless you actually researched into it. The premise was that Universal themselves created this haunted house based on the Chucky TV series, specifically for the real-life Chucky to come and visit the house. And when Chucky gets a little annoyed that nobody's actually getting killed, he decides he's going to kill all of the people working in the house. So it's supposed to be a meta house or whatever. And I think it didn't come across the first time as that. Especially the first night I was there, it was so down in the queues that you wouldn't be able to, you couldn't hear the TV systems, and quite often the sound and image was out of time anyway. So like, it didn't get it across great in there. I think in terms of the house, it was almost entirely made of very narrow corridors, because obviously they used the Fast and Furious queue instead of like an actual normal building for it. So I think it did suffer a bit from the space it was in. It worked good last year with Blumhouse. They did Freaky and they did Black Phone, and then the bit in the middle was like the transition between the Freaky segment and the Black Phone segment, whereas this one, the bit in the middle just kind of really slowed. It took you, like, it lost the momentum of the house when you went halfway through, and then you just had this empty middle bit with like one actor up high or something just talking to you, not even trying to scare you, and then you went into the second half. It really lost momentum. But Chucky was fun. I don't think Chucky is scary. I think the scare actors who were pretending to be attacked by Chucky were scary, but Chucky himself was not scary. It just, I don't know, it didn't feel the same standard as the other houses. It just didn't like, it didn't quite feel it, you know? And like, I think it was a good idea at least, but like, I don't think it was the best executed thing. And I would have liked to see what they did in Hollywood, where they had the guy as a giant Chucky mascot who was out there as well, and they could have done something with that. That was pretty cool. But yeah, I think it suffered from the space it was in, from the fact there were so many bright colours as well. It made it less scary. It was Chucky, which was already going to be not that scary because it's a doll. It was just, it's a small, like 2.5 foot tall doll. It's not. So yeah, I think it was dealt a difficult hand, I guess, with the space it was given. Like, it could have been better. That's the thing, though. It's like, it's not that it was bad. All the houses were really good this year, but it's just this one feels like it had the most potential to have been better. Moving on from that, we're going to G. We're going to Dr. Oddfellow's Twisted Origins. Alright, let's talk about Dr. Oddfellow for a sec. Dr. Oddfellow is the main character of this year's Halloween Horror Nights. He's interwoven with the lore for decades and decades. He created Jack the Clown and gave him his immortality or something. Apparently Jack the Clown killed Oddfellow at one point, and when Oddfellow lost his immortality, I guess. Anyway, the idea of this Halloween Horror Nights is that we focus on Oddfellow and his past. So the main theming is the kind of early to mid 90s. You go to the Scare Zone Jungle of Doom, it's 1920s. This house is 1930s. The Shipyard 32 horror area was 1950s, and obviously the Vamp 69 area was 1960s. And Dr. Oddfellow is kind of interwoven throughout each of those different areas. Like, you could see him very easily in Jungle of Doom. In Shipyard, you have to look for a monster or something that has scars on his face that Oddfellow has, because he can shapeshift apparently. Vamp 69 as well, I think you might have to find a vampire with some scars like Oddfellow's. I'm not sure about that. But anyway, the house is set in the 30s. You never know it though. It's set in the I think it was called the Dust Bowl region of one of the states or something. Somewhere beginning with P. Anyway, yeah. So there's this traveling circus. They've set up a tent, and you go inside, and it's Oddfellow's, Dr. Oddfellow's Twisted Origins. One thing I'll say straight away is all the scenes with Dr. Oddfellow in the on the stage were really good, and I think Oddfellow really steals the show. But otherwise, it was something of a generic clown house. Like, it didn't feel like anything too special, and it was just, I don't know, I was struggling with this. I did make some notes on this one, so we'll get those up. I found them right Yeah, so I made some notes. So, I mean, yeah, it wasn't bad, it was still really good. It takes you through his traveling circus tent, where you can view all of Oddfellow's oddities and acts of distortion. There were clowns galore in this house, like loads of them. Some cleverly hidden frights behind curtains, fall-away windows, some particularly gruesome scenes with the knife throwing, and the one clown who uses the hammer to do the test of strength on a person's head. At the centre of it all is the man himself, Dr. Oddfellow, who still, like I said earlier, steals the show in every scene he's in. He's this charismatic, enigmatic personality with his scepter of souls that he steals your souls. And, but I feel like all the scenes in between Oddfellow scenes kind of just, it fell flat a little bit in terms of theming. It became somewhat generic clown house, which I guess is fine. I mean, yeah, it's scary. Clowns can be scary, but, like, it didn't so much tell his story. It didn't tell his origins that much. The story's not the clearest. It's easy to infer that by the time you leave the house, your soul has been distorted, because he tells you this in the last room. But how exactly that happened isn't that clear to me. Because, I know I listened to the Discovery Universal podcast, and they said all these little details of, like, you have to look for the silhouette of Jack the Clown, you have to look for this little bit where Jack slashes, Oddfellow and causes him to bleed, which then drips onto Jack, giving him immortality. Yeah, it's Twisted Origins, plural, because it's Oddfellow and Jack the Clown's origins. There's a bit where you can see Jack being put in the box. There's all these little details, which, A, you will understand more if you know the Howling Horror Nights lore, and B, like, you have to look really carefully for, and so you miss a lot of it. Like, especially on your first walkthrough, where at this point, and like by the time I did it the first time, I was just focused on the fact that these clowns were jumping out at me everywhere. And I got jumped by a lion and a freaking minotaur for some reason. I don't know why there was a minotaur there. But, yes, so, like, I feel like, to the regular guy who doesn't know the HHN lore that much, I feel like the story in between the scenes of Oddfellow gets really lost. And that's why it hasn't done as high for me as others. And again, it's just, all the houses were really, really good. So I'm really having to nitpick at some to try and, like, justify even being able to rank them, because they're that good. But yeah, so that's Dr. Oddfellow's Twisted Origins. If we work our way around to H, we've got, this was a really good house. We got the Darkest Deal. I've got it at the top here. Darkest Deal, here. Have you heard of The Devil Went Down to Georgia? That's the story that's told time and time again, where a musician sells his soul for fame. It's that. Which, you know, you think, oh, I'm doing this again. I've heard this 1,000 times, but, this one's really good. It follows this, it goes to the Mississippi Delta, and it follows this guy, Pine Straw Spruce, and, first of all, we start in a cornfield, which, is never a good sign. Like, cornfields are just never a good sign in horror. Like, it doesn't end well. You go in, you see him there, he's there with his little guitar and everything, he says, I just want to be on the stage and be a musician, it's my dream. And this guy, the Collector, the devil, they call him the Collector, but we know it's the devil. He turns to him and says that Pine Straw he can have all this and more if he signs his soul to him, and he pulls out this giant contract for it, which is really cool. And the name lights up on it, and then he says, the deal is done. It's just so cool. And then you take a right turn and the devil jumps out at you. But then you go into, like, the first lounge, you go into, like, you go into Bub's lounge, and you see Pine Straw playing on the stage, he's playing his blues, and he's a blues musician. And you got all the patrons watching, and they're enjoying it, and then occasionally, like, some of the patrons will, like, become possessed by the devil, and they'll turn and try and get you. And then as you go through this, house, you go to the stage that Pine Straw performs on gradually gets nicer and nicer as he grows to fame. But you keep seeing all these people getting possessed by the devil, and and then eventually you kind of traipse through like an underworld kind of segment where all these like demon things are trying to get you, and you see all these other bodies in the walls and everything, and like there's this voice saying he's not the first, which alludes to the fact that you only get this if you've like really dug into it. the Silver Universe podcast, it alludes to a musician before Pine Store who made the same deal with the devil. So that's a nice little detail if you've really focused on it. So yeah, and then you work your way through, and then you get to like his last stage with Pine Store, and he's on this really fancy like stage, really up end. He's playing, and the devil, the collector, he's on stage in like his true devil form, not human form. And he takes Pine Store's soul right from his body on stage right there. You can see he's got like this glowing blue light in his chest that just like it's taken out, and it's really cool actually. And then you go back into hell and some demons jump at you. And then right at the end you think it's over, and you see the collector in his true form sitting on a chair, and it's like, okay, just take a right turn and get him. And then he just jumps up off his chair and tries to get you. It's so funny. But yeah, and that's the house. It was a really good house. It was easy to follow the story. It was a good story it was a good story. It was easy to follow. That's always a good sign. It was scary. It wasn't too scary. It didn't rely solely on jump scares, but it didn't underutilize them either, and there were a lot of good hiding spots. I didn't see it the second 2 times. The first time I went through, I looked at the piano, and naturally I like to play. I tried to press the keys, which did not work. And one of them jumped out of the box part of the piano, like the little demon's head just popped out. It was pretty scary. Like, and they made use of like air jets and everything to get you when the characters jumped out at you. Like, this was a really good house. So well done, Universal. 2 to go. Sorry. 2 to go. Yep. So we got next one is we've got The Last of Us, which is extremely popular video game from 10 years ago. But Joel and Ellie, a man and a girl who survived, and they're looking for like other survivors in a world where everyone's been kind of taken over by this pandemic of cordyceps, a little fungal thing that mutates the people the hosts that it kind of infects and turns them into these weird mushroom zombie things, infected runners, clickers, bloaters, all those. And like you go through and it's quite cool. It's quite cool. It's based on the video game, not the TV show, which is good because the TV show barely had any of these monsters. It spent more time just giving episodes away to human backstories instead of just like getting on with it. I mean, granted, the TV show was good, the stories were good, but like it lost some of what I'm led to believe the game is, which is a lot of monsters. And yeah, so it's based on the video game. They got the voice actors from the video game to record more lines. And yes, you go through and you go through all these different sets that you will recognize from the game or the TV show. Like there's one bit where there's this giant house as well, where Joel's on like top floor shooting out, and there's a bloater at the bottom as well. It's yes, there's some really cool scenes. The clickers are very disturbing to look at. Like they're really, really well done. So great job for the props and makeup team there, the costume designs and everything. There's this one bit as well. You walk through bathrooms, and there's these little white specks just falling from the sky, like the spores. And that was really well done actually. And there was some bits as well where like there's one really funny bit that a clicker jumped me from the right and it sprayed me with like water, and so I turned to the left away from it, and one came from the left side and got me. But this ship's quite funny. Near the end, like, so there's 2 bloaters in this house. There's one of them that's usually pretty easy to see, and there's occasionally beating up a human body and whatever. It's in an enclosed bit on the right. And the second one's kind of near where this big house set piece is. There's like a right turn corner where there's a bloater hiding behind it. It'll come out and he'll charge you. So I did it twice on this last Thursday, and the first time my dad was at the front of my group. We lost the people in front of us, so he tried to turn right, and the bloater was there, so he just couldn't get out. And my dad was like, "Oh, cool, there's a bloater around there," and the staff were just saying, "No, that way," and so the bloater decided not to come out. So the second time round, when I was doing it for the third time, it was just me and my mum this time, and we were going through the house, and the bloater came out, and so we pointed it and we laughed at it because we were like, "Oh, it didn't come out, it came out now." Bloater obviously didn't know the context, so my mum was laughing at this bloater, and he just starts charging over with his arms up and everything. It was really funny, honestly. Like he was just like, he charged right at us. But and then right at the end, there's like a bit where there's like 2 or 3 different clickers all jumping at you from behind mirrors, so it looks like the room continues, but it doesn't, and there's spaces behind. Again, it's a clever trick. But yes, it was a really fun house, actually, and I think it was definitely really good. Like, I don't know the IP as well, but like the story's really clear. Like, it doesn't take much to explain what it is, and like the elements I did recognize, I really enjoyed. So this was a good house. The last house, the amazing Universal Monsters Unmasked house I, and house J, I mean, and so with this house, it was So for the past couple of years, I've been doing these Universal Monster houses, where they take some of their classic Universal Monsters, throw them in together, and let them fight each other or something. Last year it was the Mummy, Dracula, and the Wolfman. They were fighting each other over an artifact that was cure their curse. And but yeah, this year they decided to take some of the less famous monsters. They decided to throw us the Invisible Man, which I wasn't really sure how they were going to do jump scares with, but it worked well. First, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, the Hunchback of Notre Dame, and the Phantom of the Opera, and it was this really cool thing set in the Paris catacombs. It was indoor rain and everything, and the French policemen at the top telling you to get out the streets. There's these 4 killers going around. You go into the first segment of the house, like the first, like, at least 40% is dedicated to the Phantom of the Opera, and this take on him is he's going around carving his victims' faces just so he can try and reconstruct his own face, because obviously he wears that mask, right? And the idea is that his face is kind of like horrific underneath, so he's trying to create a new face for himself. So you go through the catacombs, you go into the Paris Opera House and everything, and he's there constantly jumping out at you and whatever. There's another one, there's mirror tricks, fall away windows and everything, all the classics. The next area was the Invisible Man. It was a really short area, it was like 5%. His first jump scare wasn't scary, because he was just kind of there. So, oh hey, you're not scary, you're a man with bandages on your face and some colourful clothes. You go to the next room and there's these flashing dark light, and like all these like invisible men lit up, and you don't know which ones were real and which ones not. It was decoys again. And so when the real ones jumped, they were unexpected. Then you went into the third area, which is probably another like good like 25%, was Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. This one was about Mr. Hyde, and then him becoming back into Dr. Jekyll and being shocked by his actions, which is quite nice, because in Hollywood it's the other way around. It starts as Dr. Jekyll, and it shows him becoming Mr. Hyde and then attacking people. And that was good. They provided some good scares. And then you got to the very short, like, Hunchback of Notre Dame section, where you look up and there's this giant bell tower, and the Hunchback is at the top on some bungee cords, and he jumps down and tries to grab you before coming back up. It's really cool. Like on my last time I went for a third time by myself, I was just stood there like, come to me, Hunchback, jump, because I really wanted to see him jump, because I missed it one of the times because he didn't want to do it. And then, yeah, you go through and then he does another jump scare, which is pretty scary. And then you get into the final room. Mr. Hyde on the right, Phantom on the left, Invisible Man in front of you. You don't even know which way you're supposed to go anymore. There's just monsters everywhere. It's really scary. So this house was really intense and did not hold back, and it was so good. The theming was good, the monsters were all good. It was good that they gave more different segments themselves. It was certainly one I wanted to keep redoing. It was it was right up there, really. It was so good. So yeah, that kind of wraps up the whole 10 houses. I'm not going to get into scare zones, I'm running low on time here, so I'm just going to wrap it up with the rankings, which I think I've finally decided on. So let me pull up my list again, just to make sure I remember them all the way they should be. And, yeah, so I'm going to give you the rankings now. Alright, I'm pretty much at the end of my ability to talk today. I'm still recovering a bit from this ill. Okay, so number 10, I went for Chucky Ultimate Kill Counts. Like I said earlier, it feels like the one that could have been better the most. Like, it was good, but it could have been better, like, more so than others. And I just think the IP isn't that scary, the house space wasn't the best, it played with what it had, and honestly, again, it was really good, but it wasn't as good as the others, because the competition was so good this year. Number 9, I went for Dr. Oddfellow's Twisted Origins, and I think the reason for this is basically just because the story really gets lost in the midst of being a generic clown house. And the key story elements that are there are really hard to find. Like, you have to really be looking for it, and like, when you're in like the media groups or whatever, it's fine, but when you're in like the generic people going in and whatever, like, it's just a constant slew of people back to front walking through. There's not really any room for stopping and taking it all in. Like, you've just got to keep going, and it's hard to find those little details. So I appreciate the little details are there, and I'm sure the fans of the Halloween Horror Night backstory appreciate it's there. But I wasn't finding most of it, and again, I've got to be really picky to really be able to rank these. So that's that. Number 8, I went for Yeti Campground Kills. Yeah, it's a really fun, stupid house with lots of jump scares, but it doesn't have that much in terms of a narrative, and I feel like once you've done it, you've done it. You don't really need to do it again. There's no extra details. The sets are good, but they're simple as well, and like, I don't know, it definitely felt like it relied on jump scares. So yeah, I put Yeti number 8. Number 7, I went for The Exorcist Believer. Like I said earlier, I feel like the story is harder to follow because I think all you can really get from it is ghosts get possessed, exorcist comes and exorcises them, oh boy, there's a demon. Which I guess is the plot, but you know, I feel like that's just a little bit basic, and like the scares were good and everything, but like there's not that much extremely good to say about it, and there's not that much bad to say about it. It's really good. But these other houses are even better. For number 6, I've done Blood Moon Dark Offerings. Genuinely, this was the most terrifying house, and I did not think it was going to be, but it was. And it did it so well. And all the scenes where they had all the decoys, like, it was so well done. And the sets were good and everything. The original idea was good as well. I mean, I say original, I'm sure there's so many stories about just a cult sacrificing people to things like the Blood Moon or whatever, but like, this was just, it was really immersive and everything, and it was like, there were times where I forgot I'm in a horror house, and that it wasn't actually a colonial village with people trying to get you. Like, it felt quite real. Number 5, I went for The Last of Us. Again, I feel like it could have been better. And I feel like I've seen the one in Hollywood, I've seen the footage, and I feel like that one had more of the recognizable locations, and I feel like if you merged the two, you would have had like an unstoppable house. And so like, I feel like there was more they could do. Not as much as they could have done with Chucky, but there was more that they could have done with this one. But it was still really good, and it was nice to see the recognizable elements, it was nice to have the IP, the clickers were amazing and everything. So number 4, I went for Dueling Dragons, and this was really tough, because obviously I really love the theme, and I really love the storytelling, I love the walking through of it, I love the multiple endings, like, I love this house. But it as a haunted house, it wasn't that scary, and there were certain areas that almost felt like the sets and the space was too big, and the sets were too good, that like, you didn't care about any of the actors that were there, you were just looking at the sets. And that the theme was just too good, and you get caught up in it, that like the scares didn't matter so much. And so I feel like it kind of lost it on the scare side, but made up for it in plenty with the theming and and everything else. Like it was so good, but these other 3 houses were so good as well, like they were just a little better. Like I spent a long time deliberating over if Dueling Dragons was number 4 or number 3. Like, it was that difficult. And even then I had to kind of say, well, how does it compare to number 2? Because it's really close between these 3. I knew my number 1, and my number 1 wasn't going to change, but 2, 3, and 4 were so close. Number 3, I went for The Darkest Deal. I really loved the vibe. I loved the kind of the story. I loved how easy it was to follow. I loved that there were good jump scares, but they didn't like go crazy with it. I love kind of just having the music in there as well, and like they were almost like these scenes where you could kind of just relax for a second and watch Pine Straw play his song and then continue with the scary stuff. Like I feel like it was a really well made house, and the costumes were great, just everything worked really well for it. And like there's not. I think all I could say, if I had to give a criticism, is maybe one more scene with Pine Straw on stage would have been fun. Because I think there were only 2 or 3, and I think 3 or 4 would have been nice. And you could have kind of shown it a bit more of him getting more and more fame, more and more people in the audience, nicer places he's playing. I think if I had to say anything to criticize, that's where it is. I think they could have just done a little more. But it was in one of those pop-up tents. They didn't have that much space. They did really well with what they had. Number 2, I went for Universal Monsters Unmasked. It was just... I didn't know how it was going to compare, especially to last year's Monsters, which was so good. It was set in the Egyptian tomb and everything, had the 3 monsters fighting. But this one, like, even though we had, like, less famous monsters, although, I mean, arguably, like, some of these monsters are really famous, but not necessarily famous Universal monsters. Like, but just, these monsters all did really well in their parts, and I liked the story, the narrative, and how it took you through each of their segments, gave them all a spotlight for a bit, and then threw them all in at the end. Some of the effects, like the indoor rain, the Hunchback jumping down from the bell tower, it was just so cool. Like, this was such a good house, honestly. And it was one of the ones where I did it the second time round, and I said it was better the second time round, because I got to see even more, and it was better every time. But number 1, undoubtedly for me, was Stranger Things 4, because A, I love Stranger Things, and B, this house was just amazing in every way. Yeah, there were great sets. There were great sets with, like, the Mind Layer and everything. There was the story, which you could easily follow even if you haven't seen the show. You don't need to know anything about the show. I think the only thing that would seem out of place if you didn't know the show was just that the random Demogorgon was there, who's not really in the show much in Season 4 except for at the Russia prison, which obviously isn't in the house. But other than that, like, the story's really easy to follow. Oh, there's this dude going around killing these people in gruesome ways, and he kills 4 of them, and then he kind of destroys Hawkins, and he attacks you from in your mind and everything. And that's easy to follow. And, like, the actors were really good in this one. Like, a lot of them looked very similar to the actual actors, which is really good. And the jump scares were good. Like, me personally, I didn't find it as scary because I had the familiarity of knowing the characters. Like, I know what Vecna is, I know what he looks like, I know the locations. It doesn't scare me as much. But that made it better for me because it meant I could go through without being terrified of what's going to happen next. But yeah, like, the scares though were good, and like, some of them would still get you. Like, even on the 3rd time through, they got me. Like, I liked the recognizable scenes from the show that they recreated. I like that they put in some of the music from the show throughout as well, gave it a kind of like extra dimension, really. The Demogorgon jump scare at the end obviously was fantastic, like I talked about earlier. I think this house just, it did it all, and it did it bigger and better than ever. And honestly, like, yeah, that was my favourite house, hands down. It was the first house I did, and on the last day, it was both the first and last house I did. It was just amazing. And I just... yeah. I'm so glad we came to Halloween Horror Nights this year. It was an amazing experience. So that rounds off my rankings. That rounds off my little discussion on the Halloween Horror Nights event. I hope you've enjoyed sticking around. I hope you've stuck around for the whole episode. And yeah, it was just... This was a great experience. I think like, if you ever find yourself in Florida from September to end of October, maybe you want to check out Halloween Horror Nights. Who knows what's coming next year? They're probably going to announce the first one by the end of next month. Like, they're going to announce the first house. Like, they didn't even finish Halloween Horror Nights last year when they announced Chucky was coming this year. And I wouldn't be surprised if we're seeing Megan next year, because last year they hinted Chucky and then they gave us Chucky. This year they had a Megan horde, and so I wouldn't be surprised if next year Megan's the house, because I think they're doing a sequel. It's really good. It's a movie about an android doll who kind of becomes self-aware. Gotta go for the Arnold Schwarzenegger there. It does become self-aware, and then it just kills people. So I think that might be up for next year. That's my guess. If I had to make any other guesses, I would love to see Saw 10. That would be really cool. I wouldn't be surprised if they do Five Nights at Freddy's next year. So there's a lot of good horror IP out there that they could be using next year. So you might want to check out Halloween Horror Nights 33 next year. I might even be going back, you never know. So it would be a great way to celebrate the 21st birthday. But yeah, so Halloween Horror Nights, brilliant experience. I went from absolutely like Like last year, it was good, but it was a lot for me, and I spent a lot of it right, just really like overwhelmed. But this year, 5 nights, I got to really take it all in, and it was so good, honestly. Highly recommend. Like even if you're someone who gets really scared of these kind of events, like I was last year, and this year I was doing houses by myself. So really, it's the kind of thing you can get used to, and it's the kind of thing you can really use to make yourself braver and everything. So it's a great experience. It's a good life experience. It's yeah, so thanks for watching. Visit Halloween Horror Nights. You could still go this year. There's plenty of time. The event ends on November 4th, so you have got all the time to get yourself over there and go see that Demogorgon at the end of Stranger Things. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.